Your first objective today is really simple. Write the equation in slope-intercept form for the line that has the indicated slope m and y-intercept b. This is just a matter of plugging in the information that's given to you and making the equation. I'll leave that to where you can see it, but I can still write below it. Slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. You're given m and you're given b. Just plug them in. Y equals a negative 3/4 x minus a half. Find the slope of the line containing the indicated points. If you're given 2 points and you want to find the slope of that line, you must use this formula. y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And those come from your points. This is point 1 and this is point 2. So this is x1, y1, x2, y2. Now just plug in and see what you have. y2 is negative 7 and subtract y1, that's 3. On the bottom, x2 is 9.2 and x1 is negative 2.6. So on the top you have a negative 10 and on the bottom you'll get 11.8. You cannot leave a decimal in a fraction. So never do that. If that's the case, if you have a decimal in a fraction, there are a couple of ways you can fix that, but the easiest way is what we will use, and that is by merely typing in negative 10 divided by 11.8 and rounding to the hundredths place, which would be negative 0.85. Try this practice problem. This is negative 2, 3, 4, negative 6. You're going to have to use this formula, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Remember, this is x1, y1, x2, y2. So that's going to be negative 6 minus 3 over 4 minus a negative 2. That's a negative 9 over 6. Remember, you must simplify your answers. So one possible answer could be a negative 3 over 2. Or it could be a negative 1.5. Or you can do negative 9 divided by 6 and come up with a negative 1.5. If you have any of those three answers, come on up. Find the slope of the line that passes through negative 7, 5, and negative 3, negative 1. To find the slope, we are going to do negative 1 minus 5 over negative 3 minus a negative 7. That is negative 6 over 4. Negative 6 over 4 is the same thing as negative 3 over 2, or it's a negative 1.5. Identify the slope and y-intercept for each line. In order to identify the slope and y-intercept, you should have it in slope-intercept form. That means you set everything equal to y. You get y by itself. To get y by itself in this case, you leave the negative 2y where it's at and move the 4x to the right, change the sign. Once you do that, you divide everything by negative 2. The negative 2 comes from just beside the y. So those cancel out. Negative 4 over 2 is just 2. and you have a negative 3/2, or you can make it a negative 1.5. But you have to identify the slope and the y-intercept. The slope is here, so m is 2, and the y-intercept b is negative 1.5. You do this problem the same way. You find out where the y is at, and if it's not on the left, you should put it on the left. If I put this y, this 6y on the left, I have to change the sign. I don't want that x term on the left, I put it to the right. Now once I have the y on the left, I want it by itself. So divide both sides by 6, or negative 6. These cancel out, and you're left with negative 8 over negative 6 times x. That can reduce to 8 over 6 x. Of course, you must reduce and come up with 4 over 3 x. But we have to identify the slope and the y-intercept. The slope is 8 over 6, which reduced to 4 over 3. And the y-intercept, there is no y-intercept listed, so what is it? 0. Write an equation in slope-intercept form for each line. So the description is a line passing through 3, 4 with a slope of 5. To do this problem, you should use the slope-intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b. And plug the information in to that equation that you're given. You know that the slope is 5. So y equals 5x plus b. But you're also given a point, 3, 4. Remember that point is xy. So you know the value of x and the value of y that you can plug in. Y is 4 and x is 3. So the only thing you're left with that's missing is b, and you need to solve for that. So solve that equation for b. 5 times 3 is 15. And to get that b by itself, you'll move that 15 to the left, change the sign, and get minus 15. 4 minus 15 is negative 11. The answer is not negative 11. Remember, you have to find the equation of the line. And when we plugged in the slope here, we had y equals 5x, but we did not know the b. But now we do. It's negative 11. So write it in. To find the equation of the line with a slope of 0 and passing through negative 2, 3, you have two options that you can use. One is what I showed you, and we'll go through that. Y equals mx plus b, and you know that the slope is 0, so we can plug that in. You also know that the point is negative 2, negative 3. That means negative 3 here and negative 2 there. So notice what happens here. It's gone. So you're just left with negative 3 equals b. If you were to plug that back in, you would come up with y equals 0x minus 3. But are we going to write 0x? No, because 0 times anything is 0. So 0 minus 3 is just negative 3. This is the solution, y equals negative 3. But there is an easier way to find it. If we go down here just a little bit and pop in a graph from right here. Alright, there we go. Notice that it says the slope is 0. The slope is 0, which means it's not going to rise any at all. Anytime you have a slope of 0, you're talking about a horizontal line. A horizontal line has a slope of 0. A vertical line has a slope that is undefined because it has 0 underneath a fraction. If you know that you have a slope of 0, you know you have a horizontal line, and it must pass through the y-axis somewhere. Notice the point is -2, -3. If I go back 2 and then down 3, back 2, down 3, it's got to be a horizontal line. Horizontal lines are y equals whatever the intercept is of the y-axis. That's -3. So if you remember that, you can do that problem really quick. If you were to ever have a vertical line, vertical lines are x equals something. So if it were x equals 2, that's a vertical line. Did anybody come up with y equals 3? Exactly. Had a lot of people with y equals 0, x minus 3, and y equals 0 minus 3. But I didn't have anybody with just y equals. So keep that in mind. If you have a slope of 0, you do not have to put 0x. Alright. Okay. Even though it's a graph, it's really simple. Use the intercepts to graph each equation. So in other words, you want to find where it crosses the x-axis and the y-axis. Make those two dots, and then draw your line. Here's how you find the x and y intercepts. If I want to find the x-intercept, I will plug 0 in for y and then solve it. Notice what happens here. Cancels out, and you're left with x equals 8. So find 8 on the x-axis and make a dot. And then go back and find the y-intercept. To find the y-intercept, you plug a 0 in for x. And notice what happens. This cancels out. You're left with 4y equals 8. That means that y must be 2. So put a 2 on the y-axis. You have 2 dots, so draw your line. And put the arrows. To find the x-intercept, we have to plug in a 0 for y. Notice that this will cancel out. So x equals -4. And then for the y-intercept, plug a 0 in for x. That cancels out, so you have 2y equals -4. Y would be a -2. So x -4 and y -2. And you'll make your line go through there like this, and the arrows.